All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the rail session we have. I'm Pranav Misal, analyst with ARC Advisory Group, focusing on the worldwide transportation market. And I would like to thank the speakers and the panelists to be here this morning. And I would like to introduce them. Sitting at first is Chantel Campbell-Goucher, Assistant Vice President, Strategy and Technology with CSX. We have Benny Krong, Senior Technical Director, Engineering Application Support. We have Paul Denton, Senior Vice President, Marketing and Technology with Progress Rail. Then we have Michael Lee, President of China Rail Signaling and Communications. And lastly, Joe Becker, Director of Rail Operations with Uptake. So I'm going to start this session giving an overview of what rail industry is all about. And then I would follow up with the speakers. Chantel and Benny would be speaking together after me. So today's rail session is focused on the impact of digitization on the rail industry, where we would be discussing about IIoT, big data analytics, playing a big role in asset performance strategies within the rail industry. So talking about the transportation segment, the market size for worldwide transportation industry is approximately $1.7 trillion, while railway industry accounts for 11.2% of it, which is $191 billion. And the rail industry is further segmented into rail services, rolling stock, train control systems, rail infrastructure, and turnkey and project management. Geographically speaking, Asia-Pacific remains with growth in Asia-Pacific remains at high levels, strongly emerging in China and India. But there have been substantial growth and investments in Africa and Latin America, while North America and Europe has been seeing comparatively slower growth rate. So this is the typical IIoT architecture for railway industry. As you can see, the sensors are placed over the linear and the rolling assets like tracks and rail signaling, or over rail cars or locomotives. And the data is transmitted using GSMR, which is an exclusive communication protocol for railways, which on a higher level goes into a cloud and which is further processed for real-time decision-making and strategies. And this data can be accessed from anywhere across the world globally or in the central control rooms. So the future of rail industry depends on the development of innovative technologies. And the two factors that are driving the industry here are driving the smart railways is process efficiency and safety. While IIoT is improving process efficiency for operators, it's also ensuring safety for the consumers. So if we talk about the efficiency, it involves all about communication technologies, train control systems, increasing infrastructure capacity for passenger and freight transit, reducing energy consumption, and optimizing fuel consumption as well. While we talk about safety, it's all about linear assets, rolling assets, physical assets like stations and tunnels. While now all the devices has been moving towards online, it's all about cybersecurity, which is a new dimension to the safety. All these factors taken together are driving better return on investments for the rail operators, which is lowering lifecycle costs and improving customer satisfaction. So talking more about efficiency, the train control systems helps in determining the accurate location of the systems with GSMR communication technologies, while predictive maintenance is enabling real-time scheduling and real-time decision-making. While smart infrastructure like advanced monitoring, surveillance, and track condition monitoring are automatically adding to the efficiency levels of the rail industry. While energy efficiency is a cross-functional parameter here, where we see solar energy or renewable energy which are used in adding to the electrification of the existing rail assets. While talking about passenger information systems and freight information systems is helping in improving the productivity or the smooth transition for revenue ticketing services for rail industry. And parameters talking about safety here is, so rail operators and suppliers will have to come together in ensuring the vulnerabilities of the failure that has been seen in the rail industry. It can be for either rail linear assets, rolling assets, physical assets like stations and bridges, and cybersecurity, which I spoke about it earlier. It's all about passenger onboard data signaling systems, and all digital systems are eventually going to be impacted with the cybersecurity. So it is very critical to ensure safety in order to address to the end users, the either freight or passengers. So IIoT also, beyond efficiency and safety, IIoT also extends its industrial opportunity in terms of machine optimization, which helps in remote maintenance and monitoring and diagnosis of the existing linear assets, while process optimization enables machine-to-machine communication, which helps in asset utilization and optimizing the asset scheduling. While talking about system optimization, it helps in energy consumption, fleet management of the overall rail industry. So the factors influencing the rail industry here, the first and foremost is the digitization. As we have been speaking on, we have been looking in this conference how digitization is impacting overall industry. It's also equally impacting the rail industry in terms of connectivity between sensors and assets all the way high level up to cloud analytics, and which I believe, or which ARC believes based on the research we are doing, will continue to evolve for next decade. The second the factor here is consolidation. So we have been seeing a lot of large suppliers, for instance, Siemens and Alstom merged their rail operations last year, while CSR and CNR merged their operations in 2014, eventually becoming one of the biggest rail suppliers. And eventually, next 5 to 7 years down the line, we will see this trend to continue, and there would be very handful of rail suppliers actually offering linear assets and rolling equipments. Talking about urbanization and climate change, the first and foremost, as per United Nations, 53% of the population resides in Tier 1 cities. And it's supposedly to be reaching close to 66% by 2050. So this trend is strongly evident in emerging economies like China and India. And if this continues to go, it will drive the public transit segment. Talking about the growth driving factors, public and private partnership is always encouraged because it always helps in bridging the gap between the industry requirements and what industry needs and what industry demands are, and how private sector in terms of lowering the lead times and having that profit-making approach definitely helps the government industry going forward. If you talk about PTC and ETCS, we have been noticing a strong growth in US because of the PTC decided by FRA. Although this growth has been substantial for last few years, but after 2020, it wouldn't be as evident as it is now. While Europe is coming up with European train control systems level 3 and autonomous self-driving trains, which will continue to emerge for next decade. As I said about urbanization, it's driving the demand for long travels. Like it is very evident in Europe, where people prefer using trains rather than air travel. And as urbanization grows, there would be a growth for public transit, which is a positive sign for railroad industry. So along with the growth factors, there are a few factors which are limiting the industry right now. So first and foremost is the uncertain GDP and closed markets. So for instance, as per international monetary funds, there was a fluctuation in GDP for last few years, but it's supposed to be it would be around 5% for next few years. But in terms of closed markets, for instance, if you look at China and India, it encourages the domestic suppliers to provide their equipments for the railroad or rail operators there. So that is a very difficult sign for global suppliers in terms of penetrating that market, and the only option they have is to partner with the domestic suppliers in order to enter the market. And the third is cyber and physical threat, which will continue to grow as much as the new technologies, as assets keep moving towards online and digital age. And lastly, I would like to end with a few recommendations specifically focused for the rail operators here. They should invest, or rather reinvest with the life cycle view, trying to have a broader perspective on the cost-benefit analysis of all the assets. they should ensure high procurement and quality standards. So for instance, supplier market have their own procurement protocol, that's IRIS, and so similar to that, rail operators should have something where they can address in a similar way in terms of higher standards of factory and site acceptance tests. The third is leveraging third-party expertise. So railway industry is totally decentralized, and all these assets are managed, like different divisions manage different assets. So it is very critical for rail operators, like struggling with the issue of managing multiple assets, should leverage the expertise offered by the upcoming startups and the mid-sized segments. And finally, customizing the maintenance strategy for each asset. So there are thousands of assets within the rail industry, and it's very important to prioritize which asset needs what type of attention. And in terms of that, rail operators should focus if they need a reactive maintenance, if they need a planned or predictive maintenance to manage these assets. So it's very important to balance out their investments in terms of analyzing or understanding the status of their assets. Thank you so much, and I would like Chantel and Benny to take it over.